Hello and welcome to another video. So today, since we still don't have a defined meta and it's going to take me a bit to really adjust to a lot of cards, I thought we'd make something a little more fun. So I wanted to build the Prophetess of Creation deck right from the get-go because I thought it'd be a pretty fun card to do a deck around, especially in rotation where you don't have quite as many options as you do in Unlimited when it comes to spell boosting. You've still got quite a decent amount, and pulling this off is definitely a feat in itself, especially with the consistency and the fact that you've got to avoid drawing Prophetess of Creation to really be able to pull this off in an effective way. So the only real limiting factor to this deck, of course, being how many drops of each number you can run. So we're running a good amount of 1-drops, pretty straightforward. The 1-drop also gives us a decent 2-drop, so we actually got more 2-drops than we probably need. I'm actually considering dropping Apostle of Truth as I haven't found it quite as useful as I'd want, but I can see where it is useful. So outside of that though, we've got effectively 4 2-drops, all pretty straightforward. We've got Astral Deviation and Consecration. Astral Deviation can give us the potential to get a 5-drop, another 5-drop, a 3-drop, 4-drop, 2-drop, and another 2-drop. So that gives us a nice variety of cards that gives us the potential to really fill out this curve if we need to. Plus it fills in the 3 slot, which I also found was quite a clunky spot to be in. Otherwise, we have Cagliostra as our 4-drop. It is our only 4-drop outside of Astral, but Cag also can be an 8-drop because Enhancers actually class as an up count compared to things like Excel, which don't... Sorry, Enhancers don't count as an up drop, so you can actually play this as an 8 and it will still be a 4-drop, effectively filling in your 8 turn and 4 turn really effectively. Of course, it does mean we've only got one 8-drop in Fiery Embrace, whereas something like an Excel effect will actually scale down, so you're playing it as a spell which has an original cost, so I haven't messed around with that bit too much, but this deck, it works, it can get it out, and we're going to see that in the very first game, so let's go check it out. So the first thing, of course, this being a rune-on-rune matchup, is that we've got to watch out for anything the other rune player might try and do to sabotage us or try and counter us. Luckily, that shouldn't be too big of an issue for us, as we should be pretty straightforward and set up. Of course, we start off with a pretty average hand. Magic Missile, Fate's Hand, and Flame Destroyer are all pretty good. They fill out our curve nicely. Using the new side panel here, you can actually go through and check exactly which cards you've used, and they even break them up into cost, which is great. So you can actually keep track of your costs very, very effectively. So we get our 2-drop out very early, lowering the cost of everything else, of course, very quickly. I believe we also got our 1-drop, which is great with the Mysterio cards. So 1 and 2 already filled, 3-drop filled. All we really need to do is get Cag, because that will be our 4. If we can get Cagliostra onto the board on 4, we're actually really set. And that's perfect. So the Cagliostra draw on 4. You basically want an ideal curve out if you want this to go off in any kind of effective manner. Otherwise, it's a lot of dragged out gaming. It's definitely not the most powerful deck, and they're definitely not refined down, but I mean, it's a lot of fun to mess around with. And it makes for an interesting video. Plus, seeing its animation is actually pretty sweet, as you will see going forward in this match. So there wasn't much to start off with, of course, which is fine. I avoided playing the Fate's Hand here until now because I wanted to get a card out so we didn't completely stuff our hand up. The only real risk I found is overdraw. If you accidentally overdraw your creation, you are pretty screwed. You've got to be careful of that, of course. Sometimes it's almost unavoidable. Fortunately, it was just a Fiery Embrace that we overdrew, which is fine. And we got our 10-drop down, so we're only going to be missing a few drops at this point in this match. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we only need 6, 7, 8, and 9. We've already got our 9-drop in a hand, along with 8. We've also got our 7-drop, so all we really need is to get Truth's Adjudication as our 6-drop, and we will be set. So I decided to go for the Mysterium Missile into Fiery Embrace sort of setup here. Of course, drawing more cards as well. Trying to get as much as I could out of the spell boosts to buy us some time. Really, Truth's Adjudication is the only card I have a lot of trouble getting a hold of because it's the only one that you really need on curve. That's where it seems to be most effective. Being able to get in your opener might give you a lot more advantage, so definitely something to keep in mind. I've also considered using Apostle to get it, but there's so many spell boosts in this deck that it's really random. And even though we did manage to get it here, playing the 7-drop was going to be a much better play to defend our board and protect us from the potential Chimera next turn, as our opponent is going into turn 9, and luckily we did that because otherwise we would have probably been dead. So that protected us from a fairly reasonable amount of damage. Even if it means we have to play our own Giant Chimera this turn. It means we are only missing our 6-drop play, which is that Truth's Adjudication, so all we need to do is make it this one turn. We do see their own Prophetess of Creation, so it's most likely they're playing a very similar deck to me. I considered playing Rooney as a 4-drop. It's definitely something I've been considering, but I just haven't really decided to slot it in. It might actually take the place of my Apostle. It might be a really good one to run, as it does give you a few more options. So, Truth's Adjudication gives us a nice card. I can then use a couple other cards here to really wreck this board up and mess around with the opponent. Plus a nice spell boost to give our Giant Chimeras an even bigger push. And our end of turn summons Prophetess of Creation. Really, really nicely. The invocation effect, of course, at least working. Unlike the previous Blood video you guys would have seen where the invocation for some reason completely broke that video. I still don't know why. And our Giant Chimera does open up our lethal, as it does have 7 boost, clearing the board and giving us the 20/20 that would have been able to go to face if our opponent wasn't so weak and conceded. Would have been great to see it attack. The next matchup here is a bit more standard, so we don't actually get to play Prophetess here, mainly because you'll see that the potential of drawing it is actually pretty reasonable considering how much draw power you have, even as a one-off. It is why I've stuck it in as a one-off, but I'm definitely considering running 3 just for consistency's sake, maybe even just 2, so that even if I draw 1, I have the chance of putting it back in. I was testing a actual Daria variation of this deck, and the problem was I kept drawing it, so definitely another deck where I'll be considering putting in an extra one if I have it. At this stage, I do only have 1, as if you watch my card opening video, that was the one we actually drew. But we're pretty set up here. We've managed to do our 1 and 2 drops pretty easily. We've only got our Astral Deviation on 3, which is going to be pretty nice as well. Or the Consecration, which is a little bit better. The main reason I am running those 2 is you really want to try and have 2 of each drop if you can. I found 6 is the hardest spot in rotation to fill out, at least in a consistent manner, although I do need to look at the cards a little more in depth to find if there is a better way, as neutral cards will count, so maybe taking advantage of those might be the way to go. So we get our chance to play our 5-drop as well, so that means we've now cleared our 5-drop. We're only missing our 4-drop to really play out, and of course our 7, but at this stage we can't really go quite that high yet. We do get our 10-drop in the Flame Destroyer, and Cagliostra in our hand for our 4-drop is actually amazing, so having that on curve is perfect, although we do have Truth's Adjudication as well, and that is something I want to be able to play. Don't even mind them killing that Flame Destroyer at that point in the game. So we go for the Cagliostra. That does fill our 4-drop condition, which means we are only going to be missing most of our high drops through 6 to 10, which is usually the way. So we've only got 6 till 9, so 3 sets, and we've already got Truth's Adjudication in our hand, which means all we need really is going to be the Snowman and the Fiery Embrace, which shouldn't be too difficult. And I actually quite like Truth's Adjudication. The potential to deal damage, heal, and buff this follower is actually pretty good, considering the fact that, of course, it's split randomly, but you really never know. It's quite a fun card. It's a little clunky sometimes, but it's a ward, so that has that going for it, even if it doesn't get a buff. So we get our 8-drop, which is pretty much perfect at this point, although we can't use it yet. I do decide to throw Apostle of Truth, really kind of looking to see if I can actually find my 7-drop here. Unfortunately, we don't manage to find that, which is a fairly big disappointment, and I end up just playing Deviation instead. I mean, at least Fiery Embrace is going to be usable, which is a bonus, but that's really all that we've got. So yeah, this was the one match I actually did use that there, and it was really the only option. Otherwise, we have our 9-drop play, which is fine. We are just lacking the 7 and 9 now, which is going to be paining to actually get out. Especially now they're playing Apostle of Disdain. That thing can get absolutely huge real quickly with these buffs. I'll definitely be covering a dragon deck going forward, as there's a few nice Disdain variants that seem to have a lot of interest to me. They seem to be quite powerful. But, of course, I wasn't able to get everything I needed, so the Giant Chimera is pretty much our cleanup squad here. wiping out their board and dealing some damage to their face. We've got a second giant Chimera to immediately follow up if we need it. And it looks like we're going to get to use that pretty nicely. So even though we couldn't quite fill out the Prophetess curve on this one, we're only one card off in the end, needing the 7 drop, which again, a little disappointing, but I mean, the giant Chimeras can also fill your lethal role quite well. So this deck definitely isn't a deck that's going to get you a lot of wins. The idea of this deck is more so just pulling Prophetess of Creation. It's definitely going to need a bit more refinement to really get this deck to be a bit more consistent. And even then, I still don't think it's going to be that OP because it is extremely slow. So it's no surprise there. But it's definitely a lot of fun. So if you want to give this a go, there'll be a link in the description below with the deck list. Make sure to hit like and subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.